Okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, perfect. This is Supervisor Syed. I'm going to call to order the emergency special meeting of the town board for March 16, 2020. We're holding this meeting via teleconference, and we are holding this meeting via teleconference pursuant to Executive Order 202.1 issued by Governor Cuomo, which suspends Article 7 of Public Officers Law, attendance of meetings telephonically. This meeting is being recorded. It will be posted once the meeting is over. So with that said, will the clerk please roll?
Councilman Delarada. Absent. Councilwoman Jakewith.
Here.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Here.
Councilman McPartlin.
Here.
Supervisor Syed.
Here. Okay. So brief on the state of emergency. At first, I'd like to thank all of you for your patience and support during these rapidly evolving circumstances. And as you know, yesterday I signed a proclamation declaring a local state of emergency within the town of Niskayuna. This proclamation did include a 5-day emergency order for the closure of Town Hall and the Justice Court. It's likely at this time that I will sign another 5-day order sometime next week, but I will make that determination probably later in the week. So that would be another 5-day order to extend the closure of Town Hall and the Justice Court. But again, we'll be, evaluating things as they come, listening to all the news headlines and the guidance from the county and the state on how to handle that. So today, for the remainder of the day, once this meeting concludes, we will be spending the day reviewing our policies and procedures as they relate to OSHA guidance. We want to make sure that we're fully protecting our employees here and making sure that we're adequately sanitizing our facilities. So if that means, buying some other sanitizing solutions and just setting up a schedule with Charlie Bergamy and others as to how we're adequately keeping Town Hall as sanitized as possible, we'll be doing that. And Alexis can go into more detail on this in a moment. Additionally, I'll be meeting with department heads. If those meetings are in person, it'll be from the recommended safe distance of 6 feet, or it might even be easier for me to conduct these meetings via phone just for the time being. As you all know, and thank you, Councilwoman McGraw, for sending us updates, the governor just issued a directive for local governments that will require us to reduce our in-office workforce by about 50%. So we're evaluating what that means for us here and how we're going to go about doing that. But part of the meetings today that we'll be holding and the phone calls will be determining essential versus non-essential staff, how we make sure that we're staying operational adequately, but also keeping in mind and heeding the directive from the governor. So all of those details will unfold. We'll try to keep you as up to date as possible with any decisions that are being made. So it's a work in progress. So again, because it's rapidly changing, you're getting a lot of emails. We're getting a lot of information as it comes. So thank you all so much for your patience. And then the purpose of today's emergency town board meeting is to consider several policies and initiatives that are going to address the varying needs of our employees. So I've been getting minute by minute, questions from employees who don't have sick time, who do have sick time, feel sick, maybe not necessarily symptomatic. It runs the gamut. So really all of these policies that we're looking at today are meant to address as many situations that are being presented as possible. Obviously, we're not going to be able to cover every single one, but we're trying to do that here today now. So with that said, we're going to start with Resolution 2020-83, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. I have a second for purposes of amendment.
A resolution adopting a sick leave policy and establishing a pandemic emergency sick bank.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle. I didn't ask you to read, but thank you.
Okay.
I forgot to do that, but thank you. So Michelle read.
I'll second it. It's Denise. And I'm going to ask for an explanation of this. Since we only got the packet at 11:43 today, I know everybody's doing the best they can, but if somebody could provide a detailed explanation of this, that would be great.
Sure.
This is Alexis Kim speaking. Yasmin, if you want me to explain the policy, the allowance, I'm happy to do that, or else you can jump in.
Yeah, that's fine. In brief, we're trying to create really two allowances. One is a sick bank for everyone to use, and another is the pandemic emergency sick bank. And so really the difference between the two is the 10-day sick bank for everyone is really meant to cover those employees who either have very few sick days left but are still feeling symptomatic, and also those employees who have few sick days left who have family members who are feeling symptomatic so that they're caring for their family members as well. The pandemic emergency sick bank of 30 days is specific to those individuals who are being required to self-isolate or quarantine and who are actually going through testing for the virus, who may or may not have been testing positive for the virus. So that sick bank is entirely different. That one really, so that's the pandemic emergency sick bank. That one is very specific to people who have COVID-19. So, and then the 10-day sick bank is, if someone has flu-like symptoms, if they are feeling like they have a sore throat, any of the symptoms, we want them to not have to worry about, do I have enough sick time? We just want them to stay home. It's really about protecting everyone here, protecting them. And so that's the intention of that 10-day. But Alexis, if there's something that I'm missing, please jump in.
Yeah. The only thing I'd say is that it's just more the CDC's guidance was saying that you don't. One of the high-risk populations are people with weakened immune systems. So we don't want people feeling as if just because, they don't have probably coronavirus, knock on wood, but if they're sick, they're not feeling well, then they have a weakened immune system, and you're just more susceptible. So we had 2 instances last week where I know 2 people were sent home for being sick, and one of them was Jean Fody, who just joined the union, so she only had 7 sick leave hours, and so she was in because she didn't have any sick time. So this was more just in recognition that we want to be belt and suspenders, and consistent with the legislation that's before. I think it just went through Congress, and now it's going to be before Senate, which will require. It actually had language specifically addressing a situation where you're already granting employees paid sick leave. It says you have to add 14 days, above and beyond the amount already granted. So, I mean, if we were going to have to be doing this anyway through federal, directive, and I think Kristen Gillibrand is pushing a bill through New York State right now that's similar in nature. The 180 days is not meant to offend anyone. I was going through originally looking at the accumulated sick time to see if there was actually a need for, an additional sick bank. And that's when I was thinking to myself, okay, well, you only, for retirement payout, so meaning when you retire, if you have 180 sick days, you only can get paid out for 50% of those. Like if you have 181, that one does not count. And so obviously it's an insurance term, but if somebody, for example, I thought this was a non-issue because unless I would hope, God forbid nothing happens, but you have 54 days between now and retirement, sick days that presumably we weren't going to use. So I didn't know why it made sense to add 10 more hours. If anything, I thought you were going to say you would donate. I know I talked to, there's 8 individuals who have an excess of the maximum that you need for retirement. And all of them were actually really gracious. Like Charlie Bergami said he would donate 30 sick leave days towards the bank. And so, like I said,
I'm going to disagree with you on that point. I'm going to disagree with you on that point because I think people felt like maybe they were getting the arm put on them. And they may have said yes, and then they walked away and said, what did I just agree to? Why am I being asked to do that?
No, but I'm not saying that I'm saying that nobody said I'm upset that I'm not getting the 10 sick leave hours because I think it's age discrimination.
Okay.
Alexis, is this consistent with what the county is doing?
The county didn't do this. The county just did the sick bank.
Okay.
Right. So why are we doing something different than the county?
Because the county established a sick bank for specifically just for people with coronavirus quarantine.
Okay.
Ours was in line with CDC guidance and pending so it went through 20% of our employees have less than 2 weeks accrued for sick leave. And also our policy says that if you are taking care of a family member who's sick, you only can use 3 sick days. So like if Taylor was sick for 3 days, I only can use 3. If she was sick, I could only for the entire year use 3 of my sick days. So this was in recognition of that. Not
So
of
again,
Taylor,
I'm
but
scrambling to try to understand all of this because I only got the resolution a half hour ago. But
yeah, no, totally. Ask us. I'm more than happy to. So, like, for example, like Eric Amberger, anybody who just really started, just like doesn't have accrued sick leave. So
yeah,
that's what
I
this was
understand that
for.
part of it. But I'm going to ask a different question, which is, I'm seeing this about caregiving and stuff, but I don't see, and maybe it's in here somewhere, and I just haven't gotten to it yet. But something about high risk groups. I mean, we have some folks who, you know, are functionally healthy. They can come to work every day, but they may be going through chemo. They may be. So how are we accommodating those high risk groups?
So it says. So are you saying how are we accommodating them? Meaning isolating
Well,
them,
I'm
or do you
seeing
mean it's a
caregiving.
policy?
Caregiving is being specifically lined out, but I think that we need to specifically line out than other high risk group employees that we have. Folks that
And
have
do you think
perhaps
that
some
belongs
sort of.
there?
Pardon me?
Do you think it belongs best in? So where would you propose that it would go? Do you think it should be a standalone, like more of a protocol?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's just one more paragraph there under the other, right? I mean, or just another line that includes them. Or is Sebesta on this call? Maybe Sebesta can guide us. He is our HR,
So we could add it to
maybe the proper use of sick leave. So proper use of sick leave during state of emergencies. It says employee. Maybe we'll add something. Right now it says employees who exhibit flu-like illness should not come into work. Maybe add a sentence like employees who are at high risk of contracting coronavirus would be.
So would it be under conditions, or would it be employees who are deemed high?
I'm trying to go back and forth between your stuff and the stuff there. Give me 1 second. Paul Sebesta, do you have any recommendation here? You usually do, so. No, okay.
It's just Paul Sebesta and I are in my office together. So
Paul Sebesta is with you?
Yeah, I just stopped in. I didn't know how to dial in. But under the remote work and social distancing policy, there on page 2, there's a line on the top paragraph, the last line, special consideration should be given to requests by employees who are primary caregivers to children when schools or daycare centers are closed. It could just be included in there, the high-risk categories, which is diabetes, lung disease, heart disease, and old age, which is generally considered over 60, although I feel old.
And I think pregnant also.
Got it.
Is this resolution? Is this resolution 2020-84 we're talking about?
Yeah, well, Paul's saying, and I agree that the issue that Denise brought up about high risk individuals
yes.
of the town,
Where
that can be addressed in a resolution that we're going to review shortly. We have a social distancing and remote work policy. It's resolution 2020-86 that we can address it. Probably it fits better there.
By the way, is anyone else hearing Alexa speak a little less than clear? Is it just me?
Yeah, it's a little shy.
No. Alexa seems to have a problem.
Is anybody else having so much trouble getting Alexis?
Yes, that's what
yes.
I was suggesting. Yeah. It's hard. Alexis, you're a little garbled, so I don't know if it's what it is, if it's the connection or maybe it's the distance, but you're a little garbled.
Yeah.
Alexis, I might suggest that you hang up and dial back
Yeah,
into
it's
the
hard to follow you. Maybe you can try from a different line. Alexis?
Yeah, that's a good point. Bill Lawrence, might it work better if we mute our phones when we're talking?
What was that?
What also works well on this is if you're not speaking, use your mute button. If you're not speaking, use your mute button.
That will help keep background noise out.
That's true. Yep.
Yes,
Thank you.
good suggestion.
And if I might ask, this is Michelle, if you could try, I know it's hard, but try not to speak over each other, because that's getting confusing too. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. So I'm going to mute myself. Did we have, well, I guess until we get Alexis back. Alexis, are you back? Okay.
This is Bill. Can we move on to other resolutions while we're waiting for Alexis to come back to get through some of the other things that maybe we can do? Thank you.
Yes, we can. Yep. So we're going to skip, for now, we're going to skip 2020-83. We have 2020-84 sponsored by Supervisor Syed. And again, this flex work for employees, I'm not sure if people are going to have questions about that. Might we consider 2020-87 sponsored by Supervisor Syed? Or go ahead, Michelle, you can read that out.
87, did you say?
Yeah, yep, 2020-87.
I'm trying to find it in my packet. I go from 2020-84 to 2020-88. Hold on, it's out of order. I see. It's out of order. Hold on, let me find 87 towards the end. Okay.
I don't have it in my packet either.
I think it's page 20, Denise. It's out of order. Look at page 20 in this packet. It's out of order.
And I have to say that on the actual agenda and on the resolution, one says 78 or 87 and one says 88.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. It should be 87.
Yep, 80. I got it.
All right, Michelle, you can read.
A resolution amending resolution number 2019-286 and rescheduling town board meetings.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Who said that, please?
Rosemary.
Thank you.
And really quickly, just to go over this before we call the roll to vote. And now I'm realizing I'm at the wrong thing.
You're realizing what?
I'm realizing I'm looking at the wrong resolution. It should be the resolution to amend the town board meetings, and the one I'm looking at in the packet is contracts for cleaning services. So,
well, in the packet, 88 is the one.
Right. We need. You're doing. It's the town board meeting.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm just pulling it up to make sure that I'm looking at the right one. Give me a minute here. Okay, so I incorrectly called it as 220-87. It's 220-88. All right, great. 220-88, sponsored by Supervisor Syed.
A resolution to amend Resolution 2019-286, establishing the dates of the meetings of the town board in 2020.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a second?
Second. Rosemarie.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just to highlight the change, what was
May I have an
changed is
explanation? Yeah. Yep.
the March regular board meeting is moved 1 week later. So instead of holding it Tuesday the 24th, we'll be holding it Tuesday the 31st. And then separately, to account for primary day in April, the April meeting is moved from Tuesday, April 28th to Thursday, April 30th. And then additionally, just as a housekeeping item, the June meeting was moved from June 25th, which is the same day as high school graduation, may or may not occur, but let's assume that it is, to Tuesday, June 30th. So those are the only three changes. So we had a motion, a second. Will the clerk please call the roll? Oh, I'm sorry. Before that, did anyone have any questions or discussion?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
No,
Whoa.
can't hear you.
I have a question. So explain to me one more time, the June meeting was already scheduled for a Thursday?
It was.
Yes, this is Denise. So let's just work backward. The June meeting was scheduled for a Thursday already?
That was
It
primary
had-
day.
Yeah. Yeah, it was scheduled for a Thursday to account for.
Can you hear me? Okay.
I can.
Account for what?
What was that, Denise?
I'm sorry. So you were saying, and it cut out, Yasmin, it was moved to a Thursday to account for what? Primary day?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And then why are we moving the March meeting?
March 24th meeting was to occur next Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's likely that town hall
Yeah.
will continue to be closed. So we're going to move it to the last Tuesday of the month, March 31st.
Right. But if we're going to go by the CDC guidelines, it's gatherings of 50 people or more. So under that thought, we'd be doing it for 8 weeks, right? So why wouldn't we just do this same process?
Holding it by a teleconference?
Yes.
Or moving it back?
I'm holding it by a well, I don't care. I'm just saying we're not going to be able to really have a 50-person meeting, and we probably some months get more than that, right? For 8 weeks. So why are we even moving it? I mean, we're just going to have to do it like this anyway. So why are we moving it? And I know that changed since whenever you probably started working on these resolutions.
And that's a fair question. We don't necessarily have to move it. We can keep it on the 24th.
Yeah, I think I would just say yes, right? I mean, we don't know what the next week is going to bring. We may need to do a bunch more things, right?
Could be.
We will just have to work out the kinks of whether or not we want to provide this dial-in number. So this is recording. We can put it on the town website afterwards, but it encourages, I guess we could maybe send an email blast saying we won't have traditional privilege of the floor, so we could just see, written comments to the extent they come up. I'm looking at the agenda to just make sure we don't have any public hearings scheduled.
Okay. Well, we're not going to be able to have public hearings.
Is there any downside to making the changes to give yourself some extra time? We're still getting it in March. I don't see any problem with moving it off a week unless there's some pressing matter. Just give you some extra time to work out the kinks.
Yeah, I for one,
especially since we're not having it open to the public. Give yourself the extra time.
I would prefer to move it to the 31st, Denise. Again, if you want to keep it on the 24th, you can motion to amend.
No, I was trying to understand what the thought process was. I don't see any reason to move it, is what I'm saying. I think we're probably going to have to meet more than once. So I don't see any real reason to move it. But if that's what you want to do.
We have a motion and a second on the resolution as is, if you'd like to.
And then
motion to
April is,
amend.
if we still,
April is what? What was that?
no, it's fine. Primary day. Everybody understands what the reasoning is there.
Are there any other questions?
Just one comment, like I know that I can the chief and pick it back, but the only thing I can think of for moving it back is because I thought that when it was going to be scheduled on the 24th, I think we were going to have a special meeting on the 11th because there was a couple of items that weren't going to be ready for the 24th. But to the extent that it alleviated the need to have a special meeting, I just thought I could bring that up.
This is Bill. I'm having a very hard time understanding who that was that just spoke.
It was Alexis, and I'm calling from my cell phone now.
Yeah.
It seemed a little better right there. You just have to speak slowly and clearly.
Yeah, I won't speak as monotone as I usually do.
If we're worried about additional meetings that some people have raised, we can always add them. Let's move these dates, and then if we need to add additional dates as has been suggested, and we probably will, we can add them moving forward, right? We can have special meetings, etc.
Correct. Okay. All right, so we have motion and a second. I'll ask that Michelle Martinelli. What does that mean?
Wow.
Please mute the speakers on your computer if you're able to.
Mine are off.
Well, we're being called to a roll call right now, Bill, so we've got to be available.
All right, Michelle, whenever you're ready.
Okay, Councilwoman Jakewith?
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw?
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin?
Aye.
Supervisor Syed?
Yes.
4 ayes.
Resolution 220-88 passes. And we'll go back up to resolution 2020-83 now that we have Alexis back, and I think we can hear her. So we did have, I made a motion. We didn't have a second. We were in the process of discussing. So we will continue on with that discussion before I ask for a second. So if there were any further questions that you'd like to address to Alexis at this time, I'm going to mute my phone, but please ask away.
So this is Paul Briggs.
Excuse me, but I think we did have a second by Denise.
Denise, is that correct?
And that opens the discussion.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
So this is Paul Briggs. I just want everyone to understand the difference between our proposal and the county's. We're adding the 10-day sick leave not connected to the COVID-19 virus, just so everyone understands that.
Correct. And one thing to note is that, remember during our executive session, we talked about how Schenectady County already had a sick leave bank that they used normally and regularly for their employees. I got a hold of that, and so I think maybe that's one of the reasons why they maybe didn't feel the need to have granting additional sick leave paid days, because they already have a sick bank set up for all Schenectady County employees. It's just not specific to coronavirus.
This question is for Paul Briggs. Paul, this proposal that's written here, is this one that you have proposed, or that's different than the one you proposed?
The one I proposed limited the sick leave only to the pandemic we're dealing with right now.
not.
And I would prefer that.
So,
I'm not comfortable discussing something we discussed in executive session, but I am in support of the resolution as written by Paul Briggs to keep it to the corona situation.
yeah, the only thing is that one hiccup is that we did ask, so we have the ability to ask employees to leave if they're sick. And so then it becomes an issue of like when we told Jean Fody she had to leave because she was sick and we knew she didn't have any sick leave, that might run into some violations of. So she's an example where this policy as written by Paul Briggs means that she would not be eligible for the sick leave, the pandemic sick leave bank because she doesn't have coronavirus presumably. And we just then told her she has to leave.
I'm going to cut you off for a second, Alexis, and I am going to request that people don't we are in a public meeting right now. So we're not discussing specific HR matters as it relates to individual employees by name. So if everybody can be mindful of that, great, thank you.
I mean, if you'd want to elaborate, I mean, like, I'm happy to share the legislation that this is mirroring exactly both on the state and federal level. And that just the guidance is that if you're sick, you should be out of, if you're symptomatic between 2 and 14 days. I don't think this was actually anything controversial. Paul Sebesta, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you were the one who suggested on Friday that we just give the 10 hours to everyone. But that was the easiest.
Are you saying that's my suggestion?
Paul Sebesta.
Paul Sebesta's? That pertained to not withholding time from senior employees that meet the age limit for discrimination.
Yeah, but you were on board with giving employees 10 sick days.
I'm on board with treating everyone equally.
Okay, so
what I think might cover, sorry, go ahead.
That's it.
What I'm hoping, and without using specifics or people's names, we have the remote work or telework policy that we'll be considering momentarily, which from my understanding of it, and the reason why we created it was to account for individuals who can telework if they're symptomatic, and also if they're caring for a family member who's at home because school is out, or caring for a family member who is also symptomatic. So I'm hoping that all of these policies are catch-all secondarily if we don't necessarily have it in the paid sick leave policy. I'm okay with amending it as Paul Briggs has suggested, if someone would like to motion to amend, to remove one of the clauses about the sick, the 180-day accumulation. But what I don't want to do is create a policy that is just specific to, or what I should say is, I want to create a policy that both covers individuals who are directly affected by the coronavirus, who may or may not be diagnosed with it and are suffering symptoms, flu-like symptoms. But I also want to provide for 6 days for our employees who are symptomatic, but they may not have this virus, but we don't want them presenting to work. And by not creating a sick bank for individuals like that who are out of sick time, and we do have one employee in particular, how do we deal with that situation? And that's really where this policy was born out of. We don't want individuals like that who are worried about their sick time or lack of sick time, who are sick, and no, they may not necessarily have the virus per se, but we won't know that until they're either tested or just they no longer are symptomatic. But that really is what this is born out of. It's just trying to maintain a level of safety as much as possible for everybody here.
Why wouldn't the sick leave be provided during the time an employee is symptomatic until they're tested and until they receive a result?
So say that one more time.
Why the
Because
the
she
need
said,
is to the need is to stay home when you're symptomatic, to give you time to be tested and to have time to get the results of the test.
my
That's,
concern
to me, the
about
need.
talking about tests is there are no tests, Paul, right?
Exactly.
Well,
So we make,
there
the
are no
government
tests?
had a big announcement yesterday that they're going to have another 1.5 million tests out there. Well, that's a joke. So we need, I am very concerned about people who are presenting symptoms. They're just clearly very sick or they have some issue going on. I think that's what Yasmin's trying to say. And they can't get a test. The employee that was mentioned before, she can't get a test.
Well, then you
And it
stay
might be a
out
few more
until
weeks
you
to get
tests
them.
are available. Well, that's, I guess
Okay.
I'd rephrase
Then
it to
clarify
say
it.
you stay out until you stay out while you're symptomatic, until a test is available,
Okay.
and you receive the result of the test.
Okay, does that work for you, Yasmin?
Well,
Yes,
yes,
ma'am.
but that is addressed, Paul, in the proper use of sick leave. So that clause actually covers what you're describing. Employees who exhibit flu-like illness should not come to work. They may use 10 sick days, which covers them for that 2 to 14 day symptomatic period.
I just don't know why we need to put a limit on it. It may take longer than 14 days to get tested and results.
But that's for the 30-day pandemic emergency sick bank would kick in.
Okay. Well, then they're one and the same. It seems to be a duplication of sick leave.
To a certain degree, yes, but still different because we do have the clause says in addition to any sick days already taken to care for a sick family member. So that's, I guess, the main difference is yes, they are overlapping in a sense, but one is.
So this is really addressing family members, not the employee.
And employees who are not sure if they have coronavirus, but we want them to be around the clock.
That's addressed with the pandemic 30-day bank. This is really specific to family members.
And so then, Paul, I'm going to ask you this question. How do we address what we're going through right now, which is an employee is home because their kid is out of school and they don't know what to do and they have nowhere to send them?
That's what this addresses. But
this addresses that
an
as
overlap.
Well? Okay, I'm just hearing things about being symptomatic. So we're saying if they're home, they can take the time or work from home or do something with that as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So my proposal is, and what I was going to do, I was going to motion to amend. I was going to take out the last clause, sick time accumulation that Paul Berg suggested we take out. So I will do that at this time. I'm going to make a motion to amend resolution 2020-83. So where it reads allowance, the allowance section, that last sentence, employees who have accumulated 186 sick days as of March 13, 2020 are not entitled to this allowance. That will be stricken. Paul Briggs, am I correct in that suggestion?
Yes.
Okay. Were there any other suggested changes?
One suggested change would be the ability for people to donate to the pandemic sick leave bank since we don't have anything in there. I mean, I can't make an amendment, but that's just the thing that I noticed was missing from Schenectady counties with how it's going to be funded.
I would agree with including that. We've already begun to discuss it on a wider level anyway. So
this is Paul Briggs. The last line of that paragraph says the supervisor has the discretion to extend that sick bank for any person beyond the 30 days. So I think that covers it without having to have a volunteer.
So we're talking about how we're going to fund the bank. So like, how are we going to get the hours in the bank? I'm saying if people maybe, before they retire, anybody would be eligible to donate time into this bank, not to make, just so that the town doesn't have to come up with the 30 hours. It just is.
That's just a feel good change.
Yeah.
It really, you're spending money either way. If they go away and you give them, or if you give them and pay them, it's the same.
Yeah, no, like I'm saying.
Can I go back? I'm sorry. Can I just go back to what we were talking about before? I just want to finish this one thought, where Briggs was saying that the supervisor has the discretion. Can we just stay with that for 1 minute so we can finish that amendment? I would like to add, and the part in consultation with the department head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I feel like the department heads have been cut out of this situation. They know their employees best. I would almost think it should be the department head has the discretion, but it's got to be within consultation at a bare minimum for me.
So I'm going to add underneath where it says the supervisor shall have the sole discretion to extend any such sick bank beyond 30 days. It shall read, the supervisor in concert with the department head shall have the discretion. So we'll take out sole. Shall have the discretion to extend any such sick bank beyond 30 days.
Thank you, Supervisor. Yes.
You're welcome. Okay. Were there any other suggested changes? Okay. So on the amendment, I made a motion to amend. So we're clear on the amendments. Do I have a second on the motion to amend?
Second. Is that
And that was-
Rosemary? Yes, Rosemary. Just please repeat the amendment.
We have first clause for allowance. We are striking the sentence that says employees who have accumulated 186 days as of March 13, 2020 are not entitled to this allowance. That sentence is going to be stricken. And then we have the last paragraph, pandemic emergency sick bank. The very last sentence shall read, the supervisor in concert with the department head shall have the discretion to extend any such sick bank beyond 30 days.
I still do not. Can I make one comment, Paul Sebesta? The proper use of sick leave during an emergency, the first line, employees who exhibit flu-like symptoms should not come to work. Employees may use 10 days to care for family members. I guess that falls under the pandemic. If you're staying home for yourself, you would use the pandemic bank, not the 10 days.
You could use either.
Why would you use the 10 days?
Yeah, you can use that. They overlap.
Go
ahead.
Well, I think everything, if you think you're possibly affected, you would use the pandemic. When would you use the 10 days other than a family member?
If you don't have, when you had the TikTok or something that's not related, I mean, because you aren't sure if you have coronavirus, like, you don't want to, if you did use coronavirus, yes, you could dip into the bank, but I think the intention is that it's for people who are just, we don't know right now the difference between the flu and coronavirus.
So
correct.
If you think you have symptoms, you can't use the pandemic bank?
It's up to your discretion. I mean, I think these sick days.
Well, no one will. They'll use the pandemic bank.
Pandemic
seems like a duplication.
Okay, so I don't want to duplicate
like
efforts. Brig, Sebesta, just one more time, clarify what you want in here, and let's consider that.
I'm just suggesting that the pandemic bank could be used for symptoms that aren't confirmed to be coronavirus. and
Right.
why you need an additional
Of
10
course.
days beyond that.
Okay. That's fair.
So this is Paul Briggs. Does that mean that someone may get 10, 10, and 30, the way this is written? 10 from
No, I
the
think-
allowance,
Yes.
10 from the proper use of sick leave, and 10 from the sick bank, or 30 from the sick bank for 50?
Potentially. Yes.
My understanding is that the max is 30. So the 10-day might become the 30-day, but if you're not going to have 30 days. Is that clear?
It looks like
But if you,
even if you take Paul's language out, that last line in the proper use, that gives you 10 in the first allowance and 30 from the sick bank.
I see what you're saying.
The way this is written. The way it's written, you actually get 50.
Yeah.
Should we say that you get?
All right, so we need to clarify that.
Would the language be you're not eligible for the pandemic emergency sick bank until you've used the 10 additional sick leave days allocated under this policy? Because you're not under the bank, you're not allocated 30. You have the option of dipping into it if you need to. Whereas this is allowing you for like payroll today to use your sick leave that we're giving you to fill out your time card.
You can just state a cap. Put a cap in there. Put some cap language.
Yes, great suggestion. Why don't we cap it at 30?
there you go.
Okay, Paul Briggs, how would you suggest and where we work that in to just add a simple sentence to cap it at 30?
It's a whole new paragraph at the end that states any and all sick leave set forth in this policy is capped at a maximum of 30 days. Any and all sick leave set forth or granted by this policy is capped at 30 days.
I'm going to read it back. We'll have a last clause after pandemic emergency sick bank to read. Any and all sick leave granted by this policy capped 30 days, correct?
Yes.
So are we taking out the last sentence that Denise has proposed, said that the supervisor or the department head shall have discretion to extend the bank?
No, I think you should leave that.
Okay, so that would just be a proviso. That means.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any other amendments? Okay, so provided that we're all clear on the amendments, we had a motion. We have a second by Councilwoman Jaquith. Will the clerk please call the roll on the resolution as amended?
Councilwoman Jaquith.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We'll back up. I said that wrong. Will the clerk please call the roll on the amendments?
On the amendments, okay.
Councilwoman Jaquith.
Yeah.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 ayes.
4 ayes on the amendments. And now will the clerk please call the roll on the motion as amended?
Councilwoman Jaquith.
Yeah.
Councilwoman McGraw. Councilwoman McGraw.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 ayes. As
This
amended.
resolution passes. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to Resolution 2020-84, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the supervisor to approve flexible work arrangements for employees in the light of school and daycare extended closings during COVID-19.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Who is that?
Denise.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments?
Could you
I
just
think
please?
that this,
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Denise.
I would just hope that we could
Uh-oh.
Oh, you're breaking
include
up.
that same language that is in consultation with the department head.
What clause was that?
Excuse me?
It looks like it's in there, Denise, that this is in consultation with the department head.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Councilwoman Jaketh, you are correct. Throughout, if you see, the only instance where it says the supervisor was merely an example of how this might play out. But in all other instances, it's department head / supervisor. The only instance where it would be myself would be if the department head themselves is making the request.
Right. Okay, I know that. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure, and I know I'm cutting in and out. It's hard to follow. So thank you for your patience.
Sure. Yep. Not a problem. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilwoman Jaketh,
Yeah.
Councilwoman McGraw,
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin,
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 ayes.
This resolution passes. Next resolution, 2020-85, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution adopting a remote and social distancing policy for the town of Niskayuna.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, I know, Yasmin.
Somebody missing it?
Yeah, Rosemary, do you see it? I don't see it.
I know it's all out of order. I knew I read it a few minutes ago, but now I can't find it. They're just all out of order, Supervisor. So it's hard for us to follow.
No, that's all right.
It came through as number 86.
86. That's
Not
what
85.
I thought. Okay. All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So I will second 2020-86.
Okay. Thank you. Change. Are there any questions or comments?
Did you discuss this with the department heads? Have they given you input on this?
I have not.
Okay.
I have been spoken about in brief, obtuse terms. So, in a sense, yes, but to the degree of detail that this is, no. They have not reviewed this particular document.
But it does provide for their input in determining who would be eligible.
Mm-hmm.
That was Rosemary. Okay, yeah.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah. Obviously, the supervisors, the department heads,
So
the most
Paul
are
Briggs and
best
Paul
equipped. Sorry, I was just saying the department has their best equipped, obviously, to determine who can, work remotely and who, et cetera,
Of course.
work under these conditions.
Paul Sebesta, I'd like to
Of course.
comment under.
So Paul Sebesta.
Yes. I'd like to comment under request for remote work arrangement.
I would like you to comment.
There's the last line gives special consideration to requests by employees who are primary caregivers to children when schools are closed. I would think it's appropriate to add high-risk groups such as those with diabetes, heart disease, lung disease, and over the age of 60 as is recommended. Actually, California is already restricted age 65 is in quarantine.
Right. So as we discussed earlier, so Paul, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You could just use all-encompassing language like because those risk factors might change. So just reuse who have high risk factors so that as more developed they could be included.
For the CDC, for the
yes,
for the
I
CDC.
prefer that.
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah. Once we start listing, right? I prefer not to list.
Right. It's better.
Which clause is that, just so I make sure I'm putting it in the right place?
It would be,
I think it's
add to the last line of requests for remote work arrangement. The special consideration line, the last line.
All right, let me make sure I'm saying this correctly.
Briggs, you think this works?
Yes.
Also, this is Alexa speaking. Is everyone able to hear me clearly? Because one big point of this policy is to, in the worst case scenario, if town hall was shut down, but we needed to perform essential services, that the employees that perform those services will be set up with the technology to do it from home. I spoke with Diane Percy, and she's very worried about sending out the sewer, the water bills on April 6th. But it's work she could be doing from home if God forbid the town hall was closed. So Bill Lawrence is looking into getting us a town-wide subscription for specific individuals. Matt Yetto already knows how to use this remote software. I know Laura
I thought
Robertson
all
has
the essential functions were going to.
So the very last part.
But I was under the impression all those non-essential functions were going to be suspended.
No, it's for. I was referring to the.
I was under the impression all those non-essential functions.
Policy. Sorry, the last page of the policy addresses emergency protocol. So that would be an instance where if there was an outbreak and nobody was allowed to come to the town hall, it would allow someone who has to perform an essential function, like prepare the tax bill, to have access to the email, to get out from home. So it allows. It prepares employees for, in the case of an emergency, that they can at least telecommute if essential. So it's twofold. One's for a request to work remotely, and the second is kind of for the town's benefit, not benefit, for our preparedness plan to set up all of the software on people's laptops.
And Bill Lawrence has already purchased that software. Sorry.
This is Bill McFarland. Who's making the determination who's essential and who is not essential? What's going to happen with our building inspectors and they're going out in the community to complete their jobs?
Supervisor, I think you can speak on that.
Yep. Yeah. So it's going to be subject to department head. I'm really looking for their advice and input on this. They know their department's best. So I'm really, I'm not making any determination myself as to who's essential and non-essential. I'm taking all of that information that they're going to give to me and, ultimately share it with all of you. And with that respect, I know something that a lot of other organizations are doing is they're staggering their work days. So if you know that our town hall is going to be closed for 5 days, you're not going to have people presenting to your window. And so do you need, 3 people on at once? You may choose to stagger your workday and have, one person on one day, another person on the other day. And those are just some examples so that we're satisfying the quote unquote decrease in workforce suggestion without, because I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be worried now about layoffs, and that's certainly not what we want to do. What we want to do is be mindful of, staggering days, working on a different schedule. That's really what we made.
We're considering that at the Legislative Bill Drafting Commission. The other thing it does is if someone gets sick, then the whole department doesn't have to shut down.
Right. Yep.
And that's schedules like that.
Yep. Exactly. Phil, did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any other questions before I motion to amend? Okay, so we have a motion second on this resolution. I'm sorry, did someone have a question? Okay. I must just be getting feedback. So I'm going to motion to amend, and I'm going to motion to amend based off the suggestion of Paul Sebesta adding in the high risk language. Paul, if you could just identify for me one more time which clause and what it should say.
Under the request for remote work arrangement at the bottom of the first page, rolling into the second, the last line, special consideration should be given to requests by employees who are primary caregivers, and then include those determined to be at high risk by the CDC, along with those determined to be at high risk. They should get special consideration like the other group you mentioned.
Okay.
To be able to work remotely. I understand we're attempting to allow as many people as possible to work remotely, but those at exceptionally high risk should be given preference, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. All right, so that is the amendment. Do I have a second on that amendment?
I'll second the amendment, and then I have a question.
Sure.
So some people just cannot work from home. You can't replace a sewer from home. You can't. So what are we saying to these people? How are we addressing them?
That's a great question.
Right? We're doing a lot of good things for the people who are clerks at town hall, but we've got 3 major departments where I don't know, they can't work from home, certainly.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right.
They generally are not in close proximity by the nature of the work they do, but it is an issue.
So do we need to delineate that if that is an issue? There are, I think 3 departments, I guess we're going to have a conversation about what we do with the court system, but I don't see how we say that if they're including those employees in a policy like this when there's just no work from home for them.
Well,
other than maybe Patty. What?
Oh, sorry, this is Alexa. Just one solution that I was thinking, but I didn't want to just add in last minute, was for those people who can't work at home, but who are, and who aren't sick and who are affected very really by the closures of the schools because they're caregivers or they're high risk. We could maybe consider drafting, that they get additional personal days or an additional vacation days, just so that there's a little bit more parity. But I know that for operational standpoint, it will have to be a balancing between if there's 5 people on a highway who are out sick, and does that mean and they're actually out sick, and then there is, what do we do? Because we'll have to either shut down or scale down the service, the operations of the town. I agree with you. I think that there's a hole in here where it's not addressing people who don't fall squarely because they're not, like I said, you can't fix the water main at home.
Yeah, at work, we're granting compensated time for folks who are coming in. For others who are working at home, that's another, again, up for consideration and discussion.
I would support that.
Okay, so I can try to draft. Do you want to draft it in a separate policy? I think it might make sense in a separate policy, meaning rather than in this one that has to do with social distancing. But I can make, or I mean, I'll defer to you. But I could draft something and have it ready for a special meeting or.
So could we do it retroactively to today, Paul, Briggs, or
Yeah.
Sylvester?
Yes, Paul Briggs,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Paul Sebesta, I'm not understanding what I think I heard, that if someone comes to work, they get a day off in comp time?
No, just creative,
guess,
just various ways proposals where perhaps whether it be we give an extra personal day or an extra vacation day, or well, we haven't come up with the number yet, but if we were to give a benefit to employees who are ineligible to work remotely, it can be retroactively applied, correct, from an operational payroll standpoint. That's the question.
Sure, all right,
Thank
I'd
you.
have to see it.
Okay. All right. We can
This
do that
is
next
Bill
week.
McPartland. We have to be careful what we do. We also have the police department. These people are not
Exactly.
allowed, not able to work remotely.
This is what, Paul, Bill, that's what I said. I said at least 3 departments cannot work remotely.
Thank you.
And there's probably more. I don't know how much Michelle can do remotely. I don't know.
Yeah, I am in agreement with you that a separate policy is needed to address those individuals who just simply are not able to work remotely.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you for listening to that, everyone. So that does no longer affect this bill. So we're voting on the amendment. And Paul Briggs and Alexis will give us some retroactive policy for the meeting at the end of the month. Right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So on the amendment, I made a motion. Councilwoman McGraw seconded. Is there any discussion on that amendment? Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll on the amendment?
Councilwoman Jakewith,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw,
Yes.
Councilman McPartland,
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 ayes on the amendment.
Okay. And the amendment passes. And will the clerk please call the roll on the motion as amended?
Councilwoman Jakewith,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw,
Aye.
Councilman McPartland,
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 ayes as amended.
Okay. And the motion as amended passes. Next resolution, 2020-87, incorrectly listed on our agenda packet as 86, but that it's 2020-87. Will the clerk please read? I'm sorry, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the supervisor to contract janitorial services to disinfect town hall, highway, garage, water treatment plant, transfer station, and all other buildings in which town employees work if necessary.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
That was who, please?
Rosemary.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or discussion?
wanted to make a comment that where this came from was, I'm sure many of you saw the two resolutions that Schenectady County voted on yesterday. One was the sick bank and the other was, hiring certain personnel. This, I spoke with, I was reviewing our obligations under OSHA. Just as a blood pathogen, would have an obligation to, clean and disinfect an area with a blood pathogen. OSHA is giving guidance that coronavirus is considered just tantamount that type of pathogen. So they said we should be cleaning things like the back of our police cars, our handcuffs, any town vehicles. And I asked.
This is Bill McFarland. I spoke with the chief this morning. He's already got those procedures in place at shift change, and they are doing what they can to sanitize the cars on their shift changes.
Yeah, of course. So it just why it's tentative is that there's an executive law. There's a provision that allows the town to share services with other entities. So I thought, since the schools are going to be closed, perhaps we could utilize some of their janitor services, because right now we have Vinny Daly at the highway garage who does dusting, and we have one individual who cleans the town hall. So to the extent that our obligation is to be cleaning, and not just cleaning, disinfecting every day, we may need an additional person just for a couple of days, or a couple of weeks. So that's what this was, and just authorizing the purchase of, I was talking for Danny about some type of a light bulb, but for computers and for phones, because we don't have that currently. But it's going to be a de minimis cost, but I thought it was important just to have this on here to recognize that the town is going to be, just as other businesses are, making sure that we're routinely disinfecting for any potential virus.
Who works cleaning the highway garage? You said something that I've never seen before in a resolution.
I heard, I don't know if it's a volunteer, Vinny Daly.
Who's on our zoning board?
No.
I'm not sure.
His
son. And so,
okay.
There's a very strict, there's guidance issued by the CDC on what you need to do to disinfect. And it's fine if our employees are doing that, that's commendable, but we have to make sure it says right in there that they're trained to use the specific types of hazardous waste. And so that if the police are okay with, cleaning all handcuffs, cleaning anything that touches the public, the backseat of the car, that's fine. But perhaps we can find a service, whether it be a one-time thing that someone comes to just disinfect all of the cars, so we can check that box and make sure that they're not, harboring any.
Yeah, the intent of this resolution really is, we're at each department is doing everything that they can. I know ours is as well. Doing a great job, swabbing things down and making sure everything is as clean as it possibly can be. This is that added layer of making sure that we are following best practices that have been delineated by the CDC. So in the event that, we have to report on any of this and what we're doing and the steps that we're taking, we know great confidence that we can say, yes, we followed all of the recommended practices, and this is what we have done.
Great.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilwoman Jakewith.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilman McPartlin.
Aye.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 ayes.
And this resolution passes. And earlier we voted and passed on 220-88. So I'm now going to make a motion to adjourn, provided that nobody else has any other questions or comments. Okay, I'm going to motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Rosemary?
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we are now adjourned. Thank you all so much for your patience. This is our first teleconference. It was quite interesting. I think we did okay, given some of the background noise, but we shall be in touch. Everyone stay well, wash your hands, don't touch your face, and hope to see you all soon.
Everyone be well.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.